this is it. Once again, I have to thank you guys for your patience. But the final installment in my George Lopez Iceberg series is finally ready. I haven't totally explained this yet, but this Iceberg series has taken more time than I think you guys know. I think I officially decided to start this project summer 2023. Before I get into the last sections of the George Lopez Iceberg, if you've been enjoying my content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I just know some of you have forgotten to do that. Friendly reminder. Without further ado, the end of the George Lopez Iceberg. Layer 4. The Nutty Professor reference. In the season 3 episode, Angie Gets Tanked, George is sitting at a dunk tank for a school fundraiser. To get people to try and dunk him, he tries to get a rise out of people, including a character named Lawrence. George makes fun of his weight and uses the famous quote from the Nutty Professor.
Oh, look at my little Bill. He's a little Hercules. Show me muscle again. Oh, Hercules, 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 Hercules.
Hey, Hercules, Hercules, Hercules.
What's actually pretty interesting about this, something I had no idea of until recently, is that the character Lawrence is played by the same actor that is flexing his muscles in that Nutty Professor clip. And that actor's name is Jamal Mixon. Lalo Montenegro. In season 2, after Ernie searches Benny's personnel file at work, he comes across an incident report from 1965.
Hey, man, you're not supposed to look at that. That's confidential.
Yeah, I know. So keep it to yourself. In 1965, she was written up for dating this other employee. How should I put this? She was found in the break room with her landing gear up and her flaps down.
This couldn't have happened in 1965. I was born in 65. My mom was with my dad.
She was also seeing this other guy, Lalo Montenegro. I looked up his file, and I got this picture of him.
He looks kind of familiar.
He should. He's got George's eyes, George's hair, George's nose.
What are you saying, Ernie?
This write-up was in March of 65. You were born 9 months later.
Mom!
The man in question is Lalo Montenegro, played by Cheech Marin of Cheech and Chong. So George tracks down Lalo and finds out that he is a gay man living with a male partner.
What do we have here? Oh, 2 studs and me with no hammer.
He tells Lalo the situation, and Lalo says that he and Benny were both super wasted when they supposedly hooked up all those years ago, and that he could very well be his dad. Benny later confronts Lalo when he's invited to Thanksgiving, and Lalo admits they never had sex, and that he is not George's dad after all. At the end of the episode, George and Lalo agree to still be there for one another, referring to him as Uncle Lalo. However, he never appears in the show again. Freddy crossovers. So, if you watched the George Lopez show when it was originally on the air on ABC, you might be confused as to why this is so low on the iceberg. Well, for me, as somebody who watched the show on Nick at Night, I had no idea that that episode where Max has an online girlfriend from Chicago was a crossover at all. This was indeed one of 2 crossover episodes between the George Lopez show and Freddy, another ABC sitcom starring Freddie Prinze Jr. Now, the more famous of the 2 crossover episodes is the one I just mentioned. Season 5, episode 19, George Gets Crossover Freddy, where Freddy comes to Los Angeles, Max is dating the girl from Chicago, blah blah blah. But something major I discovered when making this iceberg is that there's actually another George Lopez Freddy crossover, where George, Max, and Ernie go to Chicago and make an appearance on an episode of Freddy. So as I watched George Lopez on Nick at Night, the reruns, there was never any promotion or anything indicating that there was a crossover between George Lopez and Freddy, as opposed to what I'm sure they did on ABC. But for me, someone who's watched the George Lopez sitcom an ungodly amount of times at this point, finding what is basically an episode of the show I've never seen was surreal. But yeah, Unfortunately, the episode of Freddy that features some of the George Lopez cast is pretty mid. The plot is basically they visit Chicago so Max can visit his online girlfriend that was established in Season 5, Episode 19 of George Lopez. While they go do their own thing, George and Freddy have sort of a dick measuring contest, as George loves to do, just to see which of the two came from a rougher background. Given that Freddy lives this wealthy lifestyle in Chicago and George has made a good living for himself in LA, when they go visit a seedy, dangerous dive bar Freddy used to go to, they both kind of get freaked out and then they get sent to jail. And then they settle the dispute, if you can even call it that. By the end of the episode, Max and Zoe realize they really aren't a good match, so that plot line is wrapped up. But there is one odd thing about this episode in terms of the George Lopez canon. Do you recognize that woman right there? Yes, that is Jacqueline Obradors, who plays Gloria Palmero, Angie's sister on George Lopez. Now, I could easily enter like a Quentin Reviews type doppelganger theory with this. Maybe after making a fool of herself in front of her family, Gloria faked her identity and started a new life or some shit. I don't know. But we're not going to go there. Bottom line is George and Max see her and seem not to recognize her. I'm just gonna leave it at that. George and Angie have a sex tape. So there are a couple references to George and Angie having a sex tape of some kind throughout the show. In Season 1, Episode 3, Carmen alludes to having seen a tape like this.
Uh-oh, your father's home. Go hide these bags in your room.
Mom, why are you throwing Dad a surprise birthday party anyway? I mean, why don't you put Moulin Rouge on and dance around for him like you did on your anniversary?
How'd you know about that?
Oh, hey, don't worry about it. You're a good example for me. I mean, you're a loving couple. My friends thought so, too.
In the episode where Gloria appears, George pops a tape in the VCR, and Angie tries to shut it down immediately, thinking it's a video of their trip to the lake.
Happy birthday, baby.
What is that?
It's a homemade video.
George, is that our trip to the lake? Because the kids can't see that.
Contextually, I think we can assume that this is also a sex tape. 2022 reunion. So if you're a fan of George Lopez watching this and are not aware of this, I think I'm about to blow your mind. But first, let me introduce you guys to a show called Lopez vs. Lopez. This is a sitcom that was created by and stars George Lopez and his real-life daughter, Mayan Lopez. It premiered in 2022, and for a Christmas episode, they had a bunch of the cast of the original George Lopez show make an appearance, saying that they were George's relatives.
Hello, family. Yeah, and it didn't cost me nothing.
Thank you, George. Where's your husband?
I don't know. I haven't seen him since 2007.
I have not seen you in so long, George. Somehow your head just got bigger.
Well, how would you know that? Are most old bats blind by your age, sir?
Okay, hold on. Okay, come in.
It's a nice little thing to tie it all together with these references. I found this reunion to be pretty heartwarming, but also a little bittersweet. I mean, everyone here looks older, but, like, Ernie looks a lot older, holy shit. I do wish there was a more proper reunion or continuation of the original show in some way, but we're going to talk about that possibility deeper into the iceberg. The only other on-screen reunion of sorts was when they got most of the main cast together on George's late-night talk show Lopez Tonight as sort of a celebration of the show. George has something buried in the backyard. George hints at there being something buried in the backyard many times during the show. While on one hand, it could be dismissed as a joke, but considering that it's mentioned so many times through the show, it makes me feel that there's something buried in the yard. Maybe it's a body, I don't know. But we'll get to that later.
Now, you know, if I ever see you around here again, I'll be burying you next to Justin.
Who's Justin?
He's what makes my roses bloom. what's buried right there?
No.
My melted golf clubs. My lucky putter. I 4-putted on 18 that day, and the last thing I said to it was, I hate you. Hey, remember when I told you that NASA picked your pet snake Reuben for that secret space mission?
Yeah.
You know, that's not necessarily what happened. You know, I put him in the yard to sun himself, and I forgot, and I mowed the lawn. I want to say goodbye to him. He's over there. Max. And over there. Max. And there was some right here. His tail was like that, watcha?
Frank. Played by Mel Rodriguez, Frank is a worker from the factory that is somewhat of an anomaly of a character in the show, as he's a minor character that appears in 1 episode of Season 1, 2 episodes of Season 2, an episode in Season 3, and then way later, just 1 episode in Season 6. In his debut episode, George is nervous about Max being safe walking to school by himself, so he decides to test him to see if he would get into a stranger's car, by having Frank try to lure him into the car.
I'm gonna test my kid. When you get next to him, I'm gonna tell you what to say. I wanna see if you'll get in a stranger's van.
Hey, you know, I don't know about this, George, really.
Hey, you wanna stay in the carpool?
Is it gonna be like this every morning?
There he is right there. Get his attention.
Hey there, buddy.
Hey, Frank, tell him you lost your puppy.
Hey, you see my puppy around here anywhere?
I lost him. I don't know this neighborhood too good.
I haven't seen him.
Hey, ask him to get in and help you look for the puppy.
Hey, you wanna hop in? Help me look for him? I'll give you a couple bucks.
Oh, that's good. Hey, you never done this before, have you?
I'll help you look for the puppy.
Go away!
Mr. Lopez?
Timmy, you're gonna ruin it.
But I want to help look for the puppy.
Come on, just get in and be quiet. Come on, Frank, catch up to Max. Hey, tell him you got an Xbox in here.
Where's the Xbox? I want to play.
Man, Timmy, be quiet, and I'll give you all the change that's in my pocket.
Hey, you know, I got an Xbox in here. You wanna come in and play with it?
You're not safe. You're not safe.
Hey, George, your kid's running away.
Oh, man, good boy. Way to go, Max.
We got company.
George? Is that you?
Oh, hey, Jim. What are you doing here, Jim?
I just walked my kid to school. What are you doing back there?
Hey, Jim, listen, I know this looks funny, but I was worried about Max walking to school all by himself, so I thought maybe I'd test him to see if he'd get in a stranger's van, but Timmy got in instead.
In Season 2, they host Frank's wedding in the Lopez's backyard. And that's about all there is to his character. As a somewhat infrequent recurring character, it feels like this would have been more fitting for a more high-profile guest star. Disney. In Season 3, Episode 24, George gets his childhood wish of getting to go to Disneyland. As the show aired on ABC, this feels like product placement, considering that the network is owned by Disney. It feels a bit on the nose given the Disney-themed transitions between scenes, which is the main reason for this entry being on the Iceberg in the first place. It is quite literally the odd one out of the entire series in that sense, where they change the transitions between scenes in a significant way in this episode. Ray Palmero. Ray Palmero is Angie's brother and Veronica's estranged father. Like the rest of the Palmero family, he hails from Miami. Appearing in just 1 episode of the show, Ray is played by Andy Garcia, and he plays a major role in this episode's story. So Ray is a con man, who is said to have never been there for his daughter, Veronica. However, he comes back into Veronica's life once he hears about her inheritance, saying that he wants to be a part of her life again after not seeing her for 5 years. Suspicious. He has apparently scammed many people out of money over the years, including George. He wins over Angie and Vic by finally paying back money he's owed to them for many years, and wins over George by gifting him an HD camcorder. Ray insists that he's a changed person. acknowledging that he has done some bad things in life but is trying to make amends with his family. He stresses to Vic that he has become successful by raising venture capital and is helping to start companies as opposed to actually conning people out of money. After spending time with Veronica for several days, he tries to get Veronica to use $2 million from her inheritance to start a handbag company with him. In order to do this, though, George has to sign the check, as he is in control of the inheritance. George is naturally incredibly suspicious of this request, but signs a check made out to Ray's corporation anyway. However, George sees through this plan and catches him trying to skip town with the money in the middle of the night. George tells him that he can't use the check anyway, as he signed it as Carlos Santana. George essentially convinces him to abandon this plan. The next day, Ray admits to Veronica that he can't put up the money for the business and that he can't accept any of her money. Then he leaves for Miami, never to be seen again on the show. Blue's Clues. So there is a blue paw print on the fridge in the break room of the factory that is identical to the paw print of Blue from the children's show Blue's Clues. Again, this is a detail that I think I noticed at a young age, and I expected there to be more information about it online somewhere, but there's pretty much nothing I could find. I at the very least expected a surface level connection of some kind, like through the production or whatever, but I could not find that either. Blue's Clues was produced by Nick Jr., while George Lopez was produced by Fortis Productions, Mohawk Productions, and Warner Brothers. So no direct connection there, even though George Lopez re-aired on Nick at Night. Chingy. Chingy is a rapper from St. Louis, Missouri that had a few hits in the 2000s, namely the song Right There, which hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Chingy appears as himself in Season 4, Episode 1. When George and Vic go to San Francisco to track down Carmen after she runs away. Carmen befriended one of Chingy's dancers, and this episode she's at this party with Chingy and a bunch of other people. George doesn't know who Chingy is, but Vic does, oddly enough.
Is he okay, George? Hey, what is Chingy doing here?
Despite resisting to let her go with her dad at first, after George announces that Carmen is only 15, the whole group wants nothing to do with her and lets her go home with her dad. This is an instance on the Iceberg where its low placement on the Iceberg is mainly due to my experience having watched the show as a kid. So when I first saw that episode, I had not heard of Chingy then, and even now, despite being an obsessive music listener, I still did not realize he was a real rapper until researching for this Iceberg. So yeah, super random cameo from Chingy. Lou Powers. Lou is the older brother of Jack and Mel Powers. He's played by Paul Gleason, who you might know best as the vice principal from The Breakfast Club. Lou left the Powers Brothers company many years ago, but still gets paid for having a minority stake in the company. He is said to be a financial genius, and in the episode he appears in, he's clearly an alcoholic. George reaches out to Lou when Max starts complaining about the dentist provided by the company's dental plan. After George fails to convince Jack and Mel to switch to another dental plan, he makes a desperate attempt to reach out to Lou to try and take control of the situation. Blaine McNamara. So Blaine is the father of Carmen's boyfriend, Jason McNamara, played by Stacy Keach. At a certain point in the show, he moves to Switzerland and Jason stays with the Lopez's while he finishes high school. Jason's dad is super rich and he flies in a private jet. In one episode, he flies back to Los Angeles to visit Jason. As Jason is an aspiring professional athlete, Blaine got him connected with a trainer that put him on a steroid regimen. Blaine pays for the Lopez's for letting Jason stay with them, and pays for damage Jason did after having roid rage. Benny isn't allowed back in Canada. In the Season 2 episode, George mentions that Benny isn't allowed back into Canada. So there are a variety of reasons why someone might not be allowed back into Canada, given like a criminal record or whatever. But my money is on Benny having a DUI within the last 10 years, given your drinking habit. In this episode, George also implies that Benny has a warrant out for her in Orlando. But honestly, it's fucking Benny. It's anybody's guess what she did.
George, let's do it. Let's go to Phoenix and break his neck, and then we can head to Mexico. No, Canada. They'll never suspect.
Mom, I think we both know you're not allowed back in Canada.
George, was supposed to be our life.
I know.
You know, all the money, all the comfort. When does my ship come in, huh? Where's my pot of gold? Where's my timeshare in Orlando, huh?
Mom, I think we both know you can't go back to Orlando.
Cheaters. Cheaters was a reality TV show that, as the name implies, focuses on someone who suspects their partner is cheating. Then they get a TV crew to investigate and follow the suspected cheater until they're caught in the act. In Season 6, Episode 6, Cheaters plays a major role in the episode. George reaches out to the Cheaters crew because he suspects that Vic's much younger fiancée, Lindsay, is cheating on him. Joey Greco, the long-running host of the show, appears on the episode, and the crew follows Lindsay and finds her cheating on Vic with a younger guy. When the Cheaters crew is filming in the Lopez's home, Benny says this, implying that she has probably been featured on the show before.
Oh no, not the Cheaters guys again! Joey, I told you for the last time, leave me alone!
Joe Diaz. No, not that Joe Diaz. So Joe is Benny's older brother. In the episode where he's introduced, Benny reveals that he cheated her out of money 15 years ago. And when she finds out that he is dying, she couldn't care less. George recalls Joe showing up at the factory 2 years back, and him having this massive lump on his neck that is obviously something serious. When George asks about it, Joe says that he's treated it himself by drinking warm ginger ale instead of going to the doctor. George tries to get Benny to reconcile with her brother, and she resists at first, until George reminds her that he has Super Bowl tickets for that year, and Benny changes her mind.
Come on, Mom. You know, he might not be using his Super Bowl tickets this year. He could give them to a forgiving sister.
You know what? I need closure.
After talking with Joe at his deathbed, Benny finds closure and acquires the Super Bowl tickets. But after realizing that Joe is the only person in her life that remembers her childhood other than her, she realizes that she doesn't really care about the tickets anymore and gives them to George. Unfortunately, George can't go to the game though, because it ends up being on the same day as Joe's funeral. Hilary Duff plays two different characters. I don't think I picked up on this one until someone on the George Lopez subreddit brought it up, but yeah, Hilary Duff appears on the show twice, each time as a different character. Duff first appears in Season 2 as Stephanie. Stephanie works for La Marie Cosmetics and trains Angie on how to make sales for the makeup company. Her sales tactic, which Angie picks up on, is to make women feel so insecure that they feel like they need to buy La Marie products to cover stuff up. Hilariously, Stephanie says that she's 42 years old in the episode, but Hilary Duff was actually closer to 15 years old at the time of filming. Duff later appears in Season 4 as Kenzie, Carmen's friend from her high school's poetry club. So in Season 2 she plays a 42-year-old, and then 2 seasons later she plays a high schooler. That's pretty fucking funny. Dora the Explorer Lost Media. In 2022, a user made a post on the Lost Media wiki forums describing a crossover commercial promoting both Nick Jr. and Nick at Night, featuring an animated Dora the Explorer and a live-action George Lopez. This is how they described it. It begins with Dora in boots, possibly singing and dancing as they're known to do. Then out of seemingly nowhere, George Lopez interrupts them to ask them where he is. Dora answers with, "You're on Nick Jr.," to which George responds, "Nick Jr.? I'm supposed to be on Nick at Night." For several months, no one can find any evidence that this commercial actually existed. Until March of 2023, where someone on Twitter apparently found it and posted the commercial in its entirety.
Hola, I'm Dora.
Hola yourself. Where am I?
On Nick Jr.
Nick Jr., I'm supposed to be on Nick at Night.
Wow, he's really far from home.
Can you tell me how to get to Nick at Night?
Who do we ask for help when we don't know which way to go.
Oh, that's easy. That would be my agent or GPS.
George Lopez, every night on Nick at Night.
Come on, vámonos!
Okay, I'm coming. And they say I got a big hit.
Alberto. Alberto is a factory worker that appears in 2 episodes in season 2. He has a lazy eye, and that's pretty much all we know about him. They make jokes about it in both times that he appears, and he is one of many factory workers at Powers Brothers that appear a couple times in the show only to never be seen again. Carmen's private school letters and college letters are the same. Now, there's a little bit of hyperbole there. They're not exactly the same, but they're extremely similar. In season 2, when Carmen's opening her acceptance letters from private schools, she opens the first one.
Here goes. Owens Prep, my first choice. We're sorry to inform you.
Oh, sorry, honey.
Wait. That you've been summarily rejected. Carmen. Hold on.
Then she opens the next one, saying that's actually her top choice.
Hilltop. Okay, this one's really my first choice. Hey.
Then she opens the final one, and that's the one that accepts her, Allendale.
It's Allendale. They're all stuck-up snobs. This is the only one I really wanted! I gotta call Toby and tell her I'm going to the coolest, most exclusive school in Los Angeles.
Then a few seasons later in season 5, Carmen's opening the letters she got from the colleges she applied to.
Mom, I just got my letters from Northwestern Iowa and Columbia.
Oh, it's gonna be a tough choice. They're all great colleges.
Oh, Northwestern, my first choice, the only school I really want to go to.
And the circumstances are eerily similar. Like, they literally have her sit in that same spot on the backyard bench, and then she opens a few, doesn't get in, and then the last one she opens, that's the one she gets in. So when I made this entry, I thought it was, like, exactly similar, but it's not one-to-one. But it's pretty close. Is this an instance of lazy writing, or just a coincidence? Let me know in the comments. George, quote-unquote, wrote a song for Motley Crue. So as we established earlier, George was a musician when he was younger, playing guitar in a band with Ernie. Basically, in season 4, episode 16, it's revealed that once Angie and George got married, Benny gave her $5,000 that was left for George so they could start their life together.
Benny, thank you. I don't know what to say.
Just keep your mouth shut.
But George can't know about this. He'd be mad at me for taking money behind his back.
Make something up. I mean, you told him you could handle the birth control, and he believed that.
But I want him to walk out of here like a man, not because his wife found money and told him to go.
So I'll make you mad enough to want to leave. Okay, I'll kick it up a notch.
You mean you've been holding back?
Clean it up, stupid!
So the moment I thought I became a man was all fake? It was you and my mom playing me.
I was trying to help, George.
Wait a second. If she gave you the $5,000, that means you never met Tommy Lee at the dry cleaners. And you never saw my power ballad, The Motley Crue. It never made the charts in Germany, did it?
It doesn't matter anymore. You became a wonderful father and husband. Plus, you're pretty damn good in the sack, and I'm not just saying that.
More lies!
This fact is pretty unbelievable. Like, seriously, just think about it. Your wife tells you she sold one of your songs to this huge rock band. The band records it and releases it, and it makes the charts in Germany. But you never bother to, like, seek it out at all, like find a copy somewhere. It's just funny to think about George naively believing this and never seeing evidence of it, no matter what. George is a bad parent. Now, I will admit, this is a bit hyperbolic. George certainly has his moments and his upsides as a father. He's not 100% a bad parent, but whenever I rewatch the show nowadays, his unhealthy parenting style just strikes me on a regular basis. We'll touch on a little bit later on how he's not the best husband, but as I already talked about, like the misogyny entry, he shows an incredible amount of favoritism towards Max, therefore shunning Carmen. He makes fun of every single one of her interests in a seemingly sexist way. At times, it feels like the two are so disconnected that Carmen doesn't really feel like George's daughter, and I never get that feeling with Angie and Carmen. George tells lies to his kids, laying the groundwork for a relationship built on very little trust. Even something as seemingly low stakes as George lying about his dad feels like a big deal, because he tells Max his dad played for the fucking LA Dodgers. Again, obviously there are some upsides to George as a parent. He's hardworking, he's funny, but watching the show over and over again as an adult, I've come to realize that his poor parenting is clear as day on the show. Layer 5. Benny took part in the 1992 LA riots. In Season 5, Episode 1, George mentions that Benny took part in the 1992 Los Angeles riots after the beating of Rodney King by police. Although Benny was apparently just in it for the looting, rather than protesting against police brutality, as she doesn't even seem to remember what caused the riots all too well.
You know, I gotta get over there before my neighbors start stealing all my stuff.
Want me to go with you?
No, I move faster by myself.
Yeah, that's what you said during the riots.
They weren't riots. We were fighting for Robbie King's rights.
Mom, Rodney King!
The black guy?
Suspicious package. In Season 6, Episode 13, Max follows in his dad's footsteps by picking up the guitar. Within the same week, he joins a band with some friends from school. The band in question is named Suspicious Package. The lead guitarist, Nicky, does a little guitar battle with George. George then gets jealous that Nicky is teaching Max to play the guitar instead of him, and Max tells George that,
"Hey, Dad, I didn't want to say it in there, but Nicky thinks I should only jam with him now because then I won't pick up any sloppy habits. You understand, right?"
Yeah, of course. That's a good idea. You go back in there, man, and you rock with Nicky. Hey, I'm totally cool with that. Huh? I'm cool. I used to be a superhero.
in an attempt to win Max over, George buys the band a PA system. Honestly, a pretty expensive and great gift for a band. Max then says George can be the sound guy. Then he hears their music, disappointed that it's not some hard rock. By the end of the episode, the guys kick Max out of the band because they really only let him into the band so they could have a place to practice. An age-old but true cliche of choosing band members. George then consoles Max, Max apologizes for everything, and they make up. A janitor died on George's desk. In a Season 4 episode, George learns that Bill, the janitor at Powers Brothers, died on his desk.
What's all this?
Oh, it's a memorial to Bill the janitor. This is where it happened. He just killed over right here on your desk.
He died on my desk?
Huh? That would have been Bill's job.
In the episode with Lalo, Benny says that she used to have sex on that same desk. The same one George eats off of. Needless to say, that desk has seen some shit over the decades. Campbell Powers. Appearing in Season 2, Episodes 1 and 7, Campbell Powers is the niece of the owner of the Powers Brothers company, and she gets hired as George's assistant manager. The Powers family tree feels like some ambiguous lore that the writers like to tap into from time to time. Hence why we see or hear about random family members like this sometimes, only to never see them again after an episode or two. I contemplated having a Powers like family tree as an entry in the Iceberg, but we might save that for the bonus video that I'll do after this whole thing is all said and done. Ginger. In the Season 2 episode The Wedding Dance, the one where George agrees to host Frank's wedding in his backyard, Ernie gets up the nerve to talk to this woman at Powers Brothers, named Ginger. Obviously, since it's Ernie, he's super awkward about it, but she's also pretty awkward too. We get to hear the inner monologues of both characters, and it turns out that Ginger actually likes Ernie back.
Oh, Ginger, she's so beautiful. Ernie, be cool. Win her with words. So, you got a Twix?
Yeah, it's a chocolate-covered cookie with caramel inside. Why did I just say that? Everybody knows what a Twix is.
Bring up the wedding. Bring up the wedding. Are you gonna eat both of those?
No, one's for later. He's got such cute ears. Why is he just standing there? Maybe he's gonna ask me out.
Do it. Do it now. Are you going to the wedding?
Yeah.
Me too. All right. I got a date.
Wow. Put some honey on those biscuits.
At the end of the episode, they dance at Frank's wedding. It's one of the few times in the show where Ernie is actually smooth with the ladies. But of course, we never hear from her again. Getaway to Cuba in 2020. Super specific entry here. In the Season 3 episode Mementos, George accidentally throws out Angie's old mementos from her dead grandmother. And to make up for it, he gifts Angie tickets to a getaway to Cuba.
The reason I don't have any mementos is because I didn't have a lot of good things to remember growing up. But you did, so I should understand that. So to make up for throwing out your grandmother's stuff, I called all your relatives and tried to track down a picture or some clothing, something from her.
That is so sweet.
I couldn't find crap. So instead, I made us a reservation for a little getaway.
Hotel Nacional? George, this is in Cuba.
I want you to visit where your grandmother grew up.
But I promised my dad I wouldn't go to Cuba until Castro was gone or I was part of an airborne invasion force.
Well, look at the date.
2020?
I figured by then either Castro will be dead or your dad will be so senile we can take him to Malibu and tell him it's Cuba.
And it turns out that his prediction was right. Fidel Castro died in 2016. But the Lopezes probably wouldn't have been able to go on this trip anyway because they booked it for 2020 and you know. Sapoidi. In Season 3, Benny pulls this acronym out of fucking nowhere.
The next time you feel a violent impulse, you need to sab. Stop. Assess. And breathe.
I got one for you, George. Sapoidi. Shut Angie's pie hole or I'll do it.
Benny, you are not getting the gist.
Sapoidi!
849-220-646. This is the character George Lopez's social security number, and by association, George Lopez 2's as well. As revealed in the episode where they meet, they'd first find this out in the skate shop.
Anybody could get a fake license, quick. What's your social security number?
I'm not giving out my social security number.
Why not?
Somebody might steal my identity.
All right, I'll tell you mine. We'll say it at the same time. Ready? Go. 849-220-646.
Benny started smoking when she was pregnant with George. In episode 14 of season 6, Benny tries to quit smoking. Obviously, a habit that she's had for decades at this point. She has a really hard time quitting, and Vic recommends that she see a therapist to try to get to the root cause of her addictive behaviors. So George ends up taking her to the therapist, even though she's resistant at first, and she tells the therapist, and by association, the audience, that she started smoking while she was pregnant. I don't think I need to tell you that it's not a good idea to smoke, drink, or do drugs when you're pregnant. Birth defects and all that. But Benny just said fuck it, because I guess that's her character.
I need some background so we can figure out what triggers your need to smoke. Now, when did you start?
Well, let's see. I was crying all the time. I felt trapped. I wanted to kill myself. Oh, yeah, I was pregnant with him.
You started smoking when you were pregnant?
Yeah, I was trying to keep off the weight.
But after you had George, did you try to stop?
Hell no, I needed to smoke. I had to hold down 2 jobs just to feed this bottomless pit over here.
You never fed me.
Thirsty's real location. So you know those establishing shots of Thirsty's? That's not like a set or anything, that is a real place. And it's not just a real building, it's a real bar, actually. This is Champ's Sports Pub in Burbank, California. Looking at photos of Champ's online, it's pretty weird to see it from different angles after I've been used to seeing that one establishing shot for all 6 seasons of the show. Now, obviously, the interior in Thirsty's on the show is a TV set, so the interior of Champ's is nothing like Thirsty's, unfortunately. But I'd still like to make the venture out here to have a drink. But honestly, someone out there watching this, if you're in the position to start a business or a bar, fucking recreate Thirsty's, and I'll go. George doesn't love Angie. I'm gonna keep this pretty straightforward and simple. Just think to yourself. Think what aspects of Angie does George love, other than her being really attractive? Try to think of something that George loves about Angie. I come up with just about nothing. Again, as someone who made this fucking Iceberg, I've seen the show so much, I can't really say what George loves about Angie other than that she's hot. I honestly cannot. And that their dynamic is pretty unhealthy, just like his dynamic with other family members. I'm just gonna let some of these clips speak for themselves.
You know what? Give me a minute. I gotta rewrite this.
What are you gonna say?
You know, something romantic. Something from way down deep, how I really feel about Angie. You got anything?
You are unspoiled perfection. Your smile, your heart, your soul.
Oh, slow down.
You're an amazing wife, friend, and mother to my children. I don't deserve you. I really, really don't deserve you.
So, in your heaven, there's no wife?
Angie, it's heaven. I only promise till death. Selfish. Look, and I'm not saying I'm gonna ignore you up there if I see you at the gates. I'm gonna say hello to you or in the garden. You're walking by like that, and I'll be like, hey, what's up?
Man, I can't imagine being Veronica's age and getting millions of dollars.
You know what I would have done? I'd have bought a mansion with a grotto and lived like a king. It'd be dark, and in the middle of the night, you hear...
And we would have been broke in a year.
We? This is my rich guy's fantasy, Angie. We're not married. I got all kinds of sweet chicks in the grotto. We. Okay, you two break it up.
But we're not doing anything wrong. You kiss Mom in front of people all the time.
Okay, that's different, all right? We're married. It means nothing to us.
Why is it dark in here?
Some of us don't need to waste money on electricity.
I don't need it if you don't.
So would you say this is a good marriage? Because if it is, I don't know why gay people want it so much.
Unaired Season 6 episodes. Now, just a huge disclaimer, I don't think that these episodes actually exist. Basically, the most detailed description I could find of these existing was from the George Lopez wiki, which is a dubious source at best. But anyways, on the Season 6 page itself, it says, the season was never completed due to being pulled from airing. 3 episodes were revealed to have been recorded, but never aired. Many scripts from those episodes, including partially written ones that were never filmed, were used in St. George, another sitcom that George Lopez made in 2014 that only lasted for 1 season. Then at the bottom of the page, there's no source for this, but it goes into some more detail. It reads, the season never completed its 21 episode run. 3 episodes were never aired, even though they were recorded. The 3 episodes would have been part of a 3-part season finale that tied into the final episode, but they never aired. They have never aired even in reruns. However, in a blog post by George Lopez, he revealed that the 3 episodes were intended to start season 7 differently. So there's a few titles going around for these supposed lost episodes, and they're listed on the wiki as George is fired, George can't let Max go, and George gets a job. The trivia on the article reads, in George is fired, he is unexpectedly fired by the new owners of Powers Brothers. In George Can't Let Max Go, Max wants to move to Europe for a student exchange program. And in George Gets a Job, George starts working at an energy drink company. According to George Lopez, these episodes may be released on a DVD compilation once Season 6 is released on DVD, but cannot promise anything. Source? Trust me, bro. No, seriously, I can't find a single source to this blog that George said this in. If anyone can, please leave it in the comments and let me know. But I cannot find anything for the life of me, and I think I've put more research into this than just about anybody has for this show. Ear fetish references. Never thought I'd say that phrase into a microphone. Anyways, across the show, there are a bunch of recurring references to erotic ear, biting, touching, and licking. At one point, Vic says he kind of has this fetish. It just stands out to me because, this feels like something George Lopez inserted into the show himself because it happens, somewhat often. I'm just gonna let the clips speak for themselves.
Ow! Yeah, I could get used to that.
I don't like this. It's hard enough to see you with someone other than Mom, but my sister-in-law? No, this is wrong.
Angie, I'm not just your father. I'm a man. I need love, affection, and a woman to do this thing to my ears that I like.
Mayan Lopez cameos. So, back in the 2022 reunion entry, I mentioned George's real-life daughter, Mayan Lopez. Mayan stars opposite of George in Lopez vs. Lopez, the show where that reunion happened. But fun fact, Mayan Lopez actually makes a couple cameos in the original George Lopez show. You can see her at the carnival at Carmen's school, and later you can see her in the garage with Max and his band. Existence of God is canon. So way earlier in the Iceberg, I explained Mr. Needles, the Lopez family dog they got from the homeless guy that has basically all of the diseases. In the episode God Needles George, he gets diagnosed with cancer. Upset by this, Max wants George to pray for Mr. Needles with him. George makes a promise to God to crawl up the cobblestone path up to a church in Mexico if Mr. Needles survives. Then, the very next day, Mr. Needles seems totally healthy. The doctor does a scan on Mr. Needles, and the cancer is gone, essentially confirming the existence of God on the show, since Mr. Needles' tumors miraculously disappeared overnight. Now, even though that Mr. Needles is cured now, and that George made a promise to God, George still doesn't want to do it, but he does, eventually. I don't know who George loves more, God or Angie. Seems like he doesn't give a shit about either. Planned Eric Estrada cameo. For the unaware, Eric Estrada is an actor and former police officer. He's best known for starring on the show Chips, where he played a cop. In Season 1, Episode 3, the one where Angie throws that surprise birthday party for George, turns out that George Lopez in real life wanted Eric Estrada to make a cameo there, but he turned it down, as he explains in this interview with Ellen.
You know, I was gonna have him on the show, Ellen, right? We were gonna have Eric Estrada on the show, but he wouldn't. We wanted him in his Chips uniform. It was for a birthday episode, and it was my wife was gonna hire him as a stripper. Like he was gonna come in and say, "Are you George Lopez? Well, you're arrested for being too hot," and he was gonna start.
Right.
He wouldn't do it in his Chips uniform. Every time you see Eric Estrada, he's in his Chips in some turkey sausage commercial. You know. I graduated from high school at the time Chips came off. I don't still walk around in my cap and gown, you know.
Yeah.
Kate. Kate is a bartender at Thirsties that appears in the episode where George Lopez 2 is introduced. Kate stands out because the bartenders at Thirsties, whom we see a lot of across the show's 6 seasons, are practically never referred to by their first name. There's no like regular bartender at Thirsties that we can put like a face and a name to. Like there's no like Gunther at Thirsties. But for whatever reason, Kate got a name, which is actually the first name of the actress that plays her, Kate Orsini. Now the final entry of Layer 5. Ernie plays the piano. In Season 4, Angie and George decide to renew their vows, and accordingly have another wedding ceremony to go along with it. George and Angie then audition some wedding singers, and as they audition, Ernie plays piano for them to sing over. Ernie's piano playing is never brought up before or after this episode. Just a totally random fact. Layer 6. George is an alcoholic. Now, this is more of a theory, but when you watch this show, you see George drink quite a bit. Maybe not as much as Benny, but a lot. Alcoholism is partially genetic, so it wouldn't be crazy to say that George was predisposed to it, given that his mom is an obvious alcoholic. Given that some parts of George Lopez's real life have made their way into the show and the writing, I think this could be the case with the alcohol use as well. I don't think George has ever said he's an alcoholic or anything like that, but there have been instances where he's talked about struggling with alcohol use. And of course, there was that one incident at that casino in Canada where he just got way too fucked up. One definition of alcoholism is consuming around at least 15 drinks a week. And given how often George is at Thirsties or drinking at home, I feel like George Lopez, the character, must meet that criteria. Michael Jackson. Now you might be asking yourself, what the hell does Michael Jackson have to do with the George Lopez show? Well, this entry right here specifically has to do with Michael Jackson's 2005 trial. Charlie Sheen was Angie's brother-in-law. So Angie's sister Gloria once married none other than Charlie Sheen, therefore making him, at one point, Angie's brother-in-law. Their marriage did not last long, though, unsurprisingly.
Can I come in? You don't have to talk to me. My dad already did.
Okay. You're mad at me.
Why'd you kiss him?
I don't know. Why did I marry Charlie Sheen for a week? You have to ask my therapist.
Quitting men / quitting women table at Thirsties. Now this is super niche, and some of you might consider it a stretch, but just bear with me. In a Season 3 episode, Benny and Gina talk shit about men and how they're completely done with men at this table at Thirsties. Then in Season 6, George and Ernie are at the same exact table, except they're talking about being done with women. This table itself feels notable because usually at Thirsties, it's not like the center of attention. It's the bar, it's the pool table, it might be one of the booths in the back. But for these instances where these characters talk about giving up dating, basically, happening at the same table, it's just like, I don't know, lazy writing, coincidence, both? Probably. A third Lopez child would have been written into the show if Constance Marie got pregnant. There's a plot line at the end of season 5 where they tease Angie and George having another kid. During the season 5 finale, they leave it on a cliffhanger, where Angie's taking a pregnancy test. But of course, it'd be revealed that she's not pregnant, and George and Angie end up not having another kid after all. However, there could have easily have been a new member of the Lopez family had things gone differently. As Constance Marie explains on an episode of George Lopez's podcast from 2021.
A lot of people say your show got me through really hard times. My daughter was going through a divorce. We were really upset, and we watched it. And I just think, and it makes me laugh still. And Luna Marie, my daughter, it was not appropriate.
She did not have a daughter while the show was on.
Right.
And we might have played, if she had.
I tried. My uterus would not cooperate.
And if you had, we would have wrote it into the show, which would have been interesting. We did a little thing with a pregnancy type thing.
The false positive,
yeah. But
an employee tried to shoot up Powers Brothers after he was fired. After Angie guilts George into hiring Marisol as an assistant at the factory, she's terrible on her first day. And George recalls an instance where a former Powers Brothers employee got violent.
Well, just don't send any more of your charity cases to my office.
What? What happened with Marisol?
She's terrible. You know the guy that got fired and came back and tried to shoot up the plant? He had a better attitude.
Foreshadowing Season 5 and Season 1, Episode 2. So as you can see in the text, I made a mistake here. I actually meant foreshadowing an episode of Season 5 and Season 1, Episode 2. I'm specifically talking about foreshadowing the episode where George sees the therapist, played by Richard Lewis. George says this in Season 1.
You know, Mom, one day I'm gonna walk into a shrink's office with a wheelbarrow full of cash and talk until he begs me to leave.
And he does just that in Season 5, Episode 7.
Then my mom said that... She said that my chicken pox was God punishing me for not making it to the potty.
Lopez, school's over. I have to go.
But I'm just getting started. Want to hear what happened to my first dog, Larry?
Oh, God, no. I'm borderline depressive as it is. I just want to take my medication, put on an eye mask, and lie down.
I can wait.
No. Mr. Lopez, I was hard to deal with the school shooting, okay? Not the demon parade you have running around in there, you know what I mean? Look, if you want to see me again, you can meet me in my office.
Would I have to pay for that?
Yes, it's private practice, $150 an hour.
Okay, well, I don't need any more therapy. Well, why don't we just stay friends and we can have lunch in your office once a week? I'll bring chicken.
I don't think so.
We could email each other.
No.
I am buddies.
Bill Powers. Here we return to the elusive Powers Brothers family tree. Bill Powers is apparently the owner of the company. I can only assume that he was Jack and Mel's dad or older sibling. He's never seen on screen, but the only time he's acknowledged was when Campbell Powers introduces herself to George.
Can I help you with something?
Hi, you must be George. I'm your new assistant manager. Bill Powers hired me.
Well, you must be somebody pretty special to get the owner of the company's attention, Miss.
Powers. Campbell Powers.
Well, you changed your name to the owner's last name. You really are a team player.
Season 7 episode titles Reddit post. So, this is in red text for a reason. I think these are fake as fuck. But anyways, someone on the George Lopez subreddit claimed that they worked on the production of the show. And they made all these claims about how there was supposed to be a season 7 and they had complete episodes written, planned out, and everything. The most detailed piece of quote-unquote evidence we have is this supposed list of the episode titles for Season 7 and their associated directors and writers. Even though pretty much everyone in the comments of that Reddit post seems to believe it, I'm still calling bullshit. I did some asking around, like with the supposed lost Season 6 episodes, but again, I found nothing. At the end of the day, as far as we know, this is another Reddit trust me bro type situation. What's the use of having kids if you can't use them for parts? More than anything, this is just an insane quote to see or hear out of context.
I can't believe you are even thinking about this. You're his son. Well, what if you end up with bad kidneys like him? Are you going to take the chance of just having one?
Hey, I got 4 spare kidneys sleeping up in the room right now.
George.
Well, what's the use of having kids if you can't use them for parts?
Layer 7. Cancelled Netflix reboot. This is a pretty big piece of information that I was not made aware of until this Iceberg project was well underway. So this reveal comes from the same George Lopez podcast that Constance Marie was on in 2021.
I remember the president of Warner Brothers told me at about like 13, because I had an issue. I went to him directly, a man-to-man, and he said that I could either be a crazy actor and think everybody was out to get me, or I could go back and go to work. And I said, I'll go back and go to work. But that guy legitimately turned out to be detrimental to the show. He's not the president of Warner Brothers TV anymore, but...
Didn't sound like he had the best bedside manner based on that conversation.
He was, we sold a reboot to Netflix and he squashed it maybe 5 years ago. So when people ask me, you should reboot your show, we were way ahead of it. And this guy legitimately made a point to purposely not have the reboot ever happen.
Was there any sort of rationale, or he's just someone who had approvals and he said no?
No, I just think he never really was a fan of the show. I think he got to a point where it was doing well, and I mean he pretended to be a fan. I mean that's kind of what the thing is. He pretended to be a fan of the show, but then in reality he said, if you guys go and sell this, have them come back and let's talk, and we did. And it was like, it's not going to happen.
And so the guy who told you, don't think everyone is out to get you, was in fact a guy who was out to get you.
That's what, there you go. The guy who said, don't
smile at your face. Damn, I wish it was real. With this Iceberg series alone, I can tell from all of you guys watching and leaving comments that this show is so damn beloved. It's just so special. Very few shows, can connect with an audience on the level that the George Lopez show does. I think I speak for all of us when I say I would love to see a reboot one day. Angie drank when she was pregnant with Carmen. In Season 3, Episode 6, George makes this comment to Angie after Carmen upsets him.
Angie, tell the truth. You drank a little during your pregnancy, didn't you?
Then, Angie seems to confirm that she did indeed drink when she was pregnant with Carmen.
2 glasses of wine in 9 months.
Benny is a murderer. I'm just gonna let the evidence speak for itself here.
We had a gun in the house when you were a kid.
What are you talking about?
You remember Harriet?
Harriet? I thought she was a friend of yours. You mean all those times you'd say Harriet and I are going shopping, and Harriet and I are going on a date, and Harriet and I were loaded last night? You were talking about a gun?
Relax. Harriet's gone. I threw her off the Hoover Dam. Case closed.
But why did you...
Case closed.
Didn't sleep with the bunny. Carmen put it there. Dad, everyone at school saw that picture. I'm gonna kill her.
Max, please.
No, I'm really gonna kill her. And Grandma told me how to make it look like an accident.
George, how many times have I told you? Make sure they're dead before you put them in the bag. I ran away once. I was gone for 3 weeks.
What made you decide to come home?
Oh, I finally figured out how to get out of that trucker's cab.
I bet he left the door open. Even a serial killer knows when he's bitten off more than he can chew.
No, he fell asleep at a rest stop and I hit him with his own thermos. 47 times. There's some lettuce that never made it to Bakersfield.
Let's just get it out. Man, he's a low-life piece of crap. And I hated him for leaving us for another family. Mom, when I found out he had money and he never helped us, I wanted to break his neck.
George, let's do it. Let's go to Phoenix and break his neck, and then we can head to Mexico.
Benny has HIV.
You're gonna miss me.
No, I'm not.
Mom, admit it or I'll tell Wayne 2 of the 3 reasons why you can't donate blood.
Fine.
So this one is in red text, in this case meaning that it's a theory. So George says that there are 3 different reasons why Benny cannot donate blood. HIV might be the most obvious reason in this case, generally speaking, but it would also be the most outlandish here, which honestly would track for Benny. There are some temporary reasons why one wouldn't be able to donate blood, like people who've recently had tattoos or piercings, people who have recently had a blood transfusion, or people with an infection or cold or something like that. However, George makes it seem like Benny permanently cannot donate blood, for 3 different reasons. I'm just saying that there is a decent chance that Benny has HIV. Vic abuses painkillers. In Season 5, Episode 5, Vic casually mentions that he abuses painkillers. Considering that he's a doctor, it's not crazy to think of how he could have gotten his hands on them.
George, calm down. Imagine the pressures of the world are a bird, and they are flapping away.
How many mojitos have you had?
None. I'm only drinking hot tea. It helps the painkillers kick in.
Ernie has a framed photo of Angie in his apartment. So shout out to a user on the George Lopez subreddit that pointed this out. This is an entry where, without that, I almost definitely would not have noticed it unless I watched the show another dozen more times. In the Freddy crossover episode, we get to see inside Ernie's apartment, and back there is a framed photo of Angie. I don't know. Kind of weird to have a photo of your best friend's wife. Like, just your best friend's wife. Not with your best friend, but a framed photo of just your best friend's wife. Shout out to the set designers for the attention to detail. Jack Powers is a murderer. Like the Benny is a murderer entry, I'm gonna largely just let the evidence speak for itself here. Jack has expressed his hatred for his father. In Season 3, Episode 2, he drops hints about how he died.
Hey, Jack, let me explain.
You don't have to explain anything to me, George. We've all taken a good swing at our fathers. I took a shot at mine once during a hunting trip. Just grazed him. But he knew.
What did your dad finally die of?
Fishing accident.
George Cardenas beer. I can't believe I've never seen this Easter egg pointed out anywhere online. But sometimes when the characters on the show, usually Benny and George, are drinking a beer, if you look closely, they are branded as George Cardenas beers. Obviously combining George and Ernie's names. Just a fun little Easter egg that I love. Holy shit, guys. We've made it to the end. Layer 8. The entire Lopez family is ready to hide a body. I already explained Benny's alleged violent past, but the real kicker is just how prepared the Lopez family seemed to be for an act of murder.
Whatever he says, it wasn't my fault.
What happened? Did you hit something? Do we need to wash the car or bury anything? What am I saying? You were here all night, we played charades, you got stuck on Star Wars, and we all laughed.
But I'm gonna tell you one thing. I always stood up for you. No matter what they accused you of, you know, breaking a window, cheating on a test. I don't care. I said he didn't do it because you were my son. Now, you could have killed somebody. I would have gone on the TV and said he's a good boy. Even after I hid the body.